So let's start. Today's session is about circular plastic connectors, CPC, as we name it, which is part of the device subvertical within industrial. And the products in scope in a high level, as you can see on the left side of the screen, is basically related to 4 product groups. It starts with the multi-mate contacts, which is basically the contacts that are assembled within a connector, and it covers both power and signal. The second one is the circular plastic connector itself, as you can see represented in the second category. The third one is the rectangular connectors, and part of the rectangulars are different product lines, like we call them Metromate, MR, and M series. And it can be a little bit confusing. CPC portfolio, it's not only circular. Yes, we also have rectangular form of connectors, and it's basically the same functionality with the circular, exactly the same. It's just a different form factor, right? So compared to the circular, it's just a rectangular. And then the last group of products that we have is the SMC. So this stands for circular metal connectors, which are for more harsh or ruggedized industrial applications, and the accessories like protective caps. Now, the applications themselves basically can be a huge variety of them, as we have seen in the past couple of years, but also through the voice of the customers that we run to identify, okay, which are the targeted industries. We found out that actually there are many different types of applications that CPC can be implemented in. It starts with control systems, machinery or semiconductor machinery in more specific, warehouse automation, motion and drives, and battery systems. Now, the CPC portfolio is very broad product family, a very extensive product offering, and on a high level, I would state that it offers a very high level design flexibility with a complete range of signal and power connections. And we'll deep dive into the product details, technical details later on. The test facilities are in Harrisburg, where also our engineer is located, Mark. But in terms of manufacturing footprint, we have several locations, and the majority of the products that we sell, even in EMEA, it comes from the location in Mexico, in Hermosillo. And on top of it, we do have 2 manufacturing locations in EMEA, one in Bydgoszcz and one in Trutnov. So that gives you a little bit of the picture on the portfolio itself. On a high level, and we'll touch base on the applications, but basically what the benefit that we offer with the plastic connectors is that they are rugged connectors, but at the same time they're very, very cost-effective connectors that can be used for signal and power, and as I mentioned earlier in this deck. And then basically the applications vary, so it is from systems, power generators, material handling, agricultural equipment, and I can show you some specific examples from the customers themselves in the next slides, which came through the VOC exercise. And it will give you a better indication of where actually these products can be implemented. This is another slide of showing applications. And I'll come to this one basically, which tells a little bit more about why CPC, what are the problems that we are solving with the portfolio, and what are the CPC advantages that we are offering with this portfolio. So the customer's problems, as we can, or the pain points that we could basically solve with this portfolio is basically the cost or the price, reliable products that they can trust in the field. And as I mentioned also to my answer, the high cost mil-spec connectors, basically that they do not necessarily have those mil-spec requirements, that they can switch to the mil-style CPC connectors. And last but not least, very intense problem nowadays, the long lead times and the lack of availability, specifically in the distribution channel. And if I switch towards to what we offer with this portfolio, is basically meeting all those pain points or the problems, or solving solutions for their major pain points. And for example, design with cost-effective or very high flexibility when it comes to different design possibilities because of the offering that the range that we have both in the signal and the power, and in the hybrid solutions. So that means the combination of power and signal. but also the very well-stocked product in the distribution channel. As Tom mentioned earlier, we sell this portfolio mainly, the majority of it through channel, through the distribution. In EMEA, I would say this is about 90%. And the availability that we have in the distribution channel and the relationship that we have with them is very well established. What you see at the bottom is basically the way we break down the circular plastic connector portfolio into 3 groups, and that is the signal, the power, and the combination. So the combination refers to the hybrid versions. The signal part refers to the standard and high density up to 20 amps of applications, and it does also include sealed options, sealed meaning meeting IP67 requirements. So for power, we have the second group of products, which is up to 50 amps of contacts, and it has around 3 to 7 positions available, and the hybrid versions, which accommodate both power and signals are up to 25 and the power is up to 50. Here we also offer the sealed options, the IP67. One remark is that, and referring back to the NPIs, one very important thing is to ensure that we do offer more sealed options, as is it one of the most major requirements that we see in the industrial market, right? So I would like to go directly to the series that we have. So the circular plastic connector, as if you recall in my very first slide, the circular plastic, which refers to really the circular rounded plastic and not the rest, is divided onto 6 series, and each series represents a different type of offering. So for example, series 1 has the standard density, which is referred to for the signal applications, where also sealed versions available. The series 2, 3, series 4, series 5, series 6, so the next slides are basically referring to in more detail and depth information on what exactly the different series include. This is a nice snapshot actually that shows you the different styles between the different series, the different voltages, the different ratings with relate to the signal or the power, the densities. So each one of the series really refers to the which application type the customer is looking for, what are the ratings they're looking for, and whether they're looking for sealed types or not, and whether they are requiring sealed UV resistance. So as you can see, the 3 of them at the bottom of the screen, you see the orange highlighted ones. 3 type of series are also UV resistant rated. Now the series 8 was in concept phase, something that we still also review in terms of the future of the series, whether it's going to be launched or not, but still on hold.
All right, so I'll try to give you some detail. Series 1 is by far our most popular, and it goes from a 4 position up to 37. If you look at the arrangement, and then you'll see 2 numbers. The arrangement 11-4 is the first one. The second number represents the number of contacts. The first number corresponds to the size of the housing. Really, if you remember, a size 11 housing is smaller than the 13, right? And then the 17 is a little bit larger yet. So that's helpful if you're looking at the 2 size 13s on the top row. Both those housings are the same size. The only difference between them is one has 7 contacts and the other one has 9. And you might have figured out from when Sophia was talking about CPC being one portion and then contacts another, a customer for the most part buys contacts separate from housings. We do have some CPC connectors that we sell housings with contacts, and those would be the board mount products where they're being soldered to a printed circuit board. But for the most part, a customer will buy the housing and contacts separately. And those are mainly wire-to-wire or wire-to-panel applications, where a customer will buy a contact, crimp it to the wire that he's using, and then insert those contacts into the housing. It's a very reliable and simple to use connector system, which I imagine is why people like it. We'll have something called, we use terms standard and reverse sex. You might see those throughout our CPC catalog. And what that simply means is which half of the connector has the male contacts and which has the female. So on a plug or receptacle, you can have male or female contacts on either half. And we do have some that are rated for outdoor, which is UV exposure, Those simply have a different housing material. As far as contacts go, we have a large portfolio of contacts, anywhere from 14 gauge, which is the largest size, up to 30 gauge, which would be a 0.05 to 2 millimeter, and different platings, tin and gold. Contacts might come loose piece, which is just an individual contact in a bag that a customer would crimp to the wire with a hand tool. Looks like a pair of pliers. Or they'll come in a reel, which they may have 1,500 part numbers on a reel for automatic crimping to wires. We have such a large range of contact options. That's another attractive feature of this product line. One comment on current ratings I'll make, and this is across the board. You'll see usually on slides we listed a current rating. Say it's 25 amps, and let's say if you have a 25 amp contact, that means the maximum current you could get through that contact is 25 amps. But if you load a number of contacts into a housing, you've got to reduce that current rating because you get heat buildup within the housing. So just keep that in mind if you're working with a customer, he needs a 10 position connector, let's say, and you're looking at a contact that's rated at 25 amps, you'll know that he won't be able to get 25 amps per contact in that connector. So to determine that amount, usually we have a table within our product spec, or sometimes it's in the catalog itself with information on how you determine what the current rating would be per individual contact. So just keep that in mind. The number that you see for current rating would be the maximum available for that contact. On applicators, TE sells application tooling, crimp tooling for all the contacts that we sell, and your customers really need to use TE crimp tooling. If they don't, we're not gonna, our warranty will not be good. Chances are they're not gonna get a good crimp if they use their own tooling. And the contacts that we were talking about in this product line, they can be used for both the circular and rectangular connectors. So, okay, now we're on to Series 2. It's a higher density, so you can fit more contacts in the same amount of space. In other words, the largest connector you see on the screen here is a 63 position connector. In the Series 1, it maxed out at 37, was the largest number of contacts. So in Series 2, the contacts are slightly smaller. They can't carry as much current, but you get more of them in the same amount of space. Series 3, these are power contacts, current ratings up to like 45 or 50 amps. We have a limited number. You see a 3 position and a 7 position here. These are larger wire sizes of 1.4 to 5 millimeter square wires and larger current ratings. So to give you an example, when I was saying, in this case, a 47 amp contact, as if you use one contact in the connector there on the left, a 3 position, you could get 47 amps with the largest wire size, which would be the 5 millimeter squared. If you put all 3 contacts in, that 47 amps would reduce down to about 34 amps, just to give you an idea. This one is simply a combination of Series 1 and the Series 3 we just looked at. So you have signal and power in the same connector. This was another power connector. The difference is this one is available sealed. It's either an IP65 or IP67. And the contacts are different. They're round in cross section. And the reason they're round is we were unable to seal the square version of the contact. So we developed a round contact just for the sealed applications. And this is another combination. It's again IP65 or IP67, and the combination of Series 1 and those Series 5 sealed contacts in the same connector. Series 7 is called our mini CPC. These use different contacts altogether. It's a nice, small, compact series. It's rated to IP67. The wire size is a little bit smaller. It's 0.05 to 0.3 millimeter square. It goes from a 1 to a 9 position. And this is a nice little connector for people that need something sealed in a small size. Current ratings are up to, I think, 7 amps maximum. So current's a little bit lower than some of our other series, but it's nice and small in IP67 form. We do have, like I mentioned before, some UV rated parts that are approved for outdoor use. They're rated UL, which is the you may be familiar with UL, the US standard for safety ratings. They have something called an F1 rating, which is an outdoor rating that they will apply, and the housings on these connectors are rated for outdoor use. You can use our standard CPC in an outdoor use, and people have been doing that. The F1 rated material, you'll last a little bit longer before you start getting housing deterioration from UV exposure. But we have a limited number of these which are rated for outdoor, and they are all IP67. This was our metal shell CPC, although we have a decent offering, and this is just simply electrically, the metal shell is really no different than the standard plastic. The difference is, of course, the metal shell is much more rugged. It'll take more abuse than the plastic. So some customers, if it's in some condition where it's going to take a lot of abuse, they'll want the metal shell. I know we have some military and aerospace customers use the metal shell. Maybe someone has a forklift or somewhere where it's going to could get really abused would be attracted to the metal shell. This slide shows accessories. I mean, one big benefit, if you're looking at selling, you can usually you're selling accessories along with connectors. At the very least, what's shown on the screen is a strain relief. We call them cable clamps. Every connector should have a strain relief. So that's an additional accessory that a customer can purchase. We don't sell them as kits because strain reliefs, we have different size strain reliefs depending on the wire bundle the customer's using. So he'd want to purchase the connector, and then based upon his wire bundle size, select appropriate strain relief to use with it. But we have strain reliefs like those shown. We also have some that are a heat shrink type, where it'll be a heat shrink tubing with a threaded nut on the end attached to it, that a customer would screw that heat shrink onto the connector itself, and then use a heat gun to shrink the heat shrink material around the wire bundle. And this slide shows a number of we have rubber boots for sealing, little caps to go on the end of the connector like it's shown in the photo on the left, to protect contacts on a panel mount version when there is no mating connector attached. So there are a number of different accessories. We do have a CPC catalog which shows all the contacts, the different series, the accessories, which is it's a PDF format, and it's probably a great thing to have. Keep it on your desktop. I think it's easier to use than electronic catalog.
Just the summary of what we've discussed with related to the applications. So a variety of applications. So conversation, basically it starts with the space savings, as it is a hot trend nowadays, that customers require more and more miniaturized versions of connectivity. Another thing to ask is about whether they are how fast they want the product itself, because product availability is again a major topic nowadays, and CPC, as mentioned earlier, is a well-positioned product into the market through our distribution partners. And then whether they need have some requirements when it comes to installation times, or what are their application or the industrial requirements when it comes to space savings, or whatever harsh environments they have when it comes to, for example, choosing a product that it should meet IP67 or not. Or UV resistant product which has a specific material coating or not, and of course what type of connector solution they're looking for. Do they have a signal a connector with they would like to run a signal application or power, or both? And yeah, voltage rating, number of contacts, current rating. I think these are very great questions to start. This is basically the key takeaways with relate to the CPC. We have here listed some or providing some links where you can use them to jump into the product landing page or the catalog, the CPC accessories or specific product lines, like the UV resistant sealed CPCs, a video if you want to learn more. So please feel free to check those links for more information. we can jump into the Metromate series. Basically, these are our rectangular type of connectors. This is what you see here is basically the multimate overview. If I take a step back, the multimate refers to the contact system that we have. These are the multimate contacts, and I think it also refers to the name itself, multimate. It mates to multiple type of connectors, and that basically refers to both the rectangular and the circular. So if you see at the bottom of the screen, basically these are the contacts that actually mate with the Metromate, the M series, and the CPC, right? So I think it's one of the value offering that we have when it comes to this portfolio. Having said that, basically what we did in the past an hour or so, we talked about the CPC portfolio and all the details that Mark also provided you when it comes to the ratings and what the offerings. It covered the CPC line. And basically what we are going to talk for the next, which is much shorter, actually not as broad as CPC, to talk about the rectangular, basically the Metromate M series and MR series, or mainly the Metromate, I would say. So this is what it's about. And I think, Mark, if I can give it over to you.
Sure. So Metromate is, you can think of it as a rectangular version of CPC. The contacts will be the same, so contact offerings are the same. The customer crimp it to a wire and insert it into a housing. There are some board mount. We have actually in the Metromate larger offering of board mount versions than we have with CPC. So that is one advantage of these rectangular Metromates. We have some versions that have a temperature range of up to 130 degrees. That is even beyond what we have in our standard CPC. Yeah, on the bottom, it shows drawer connectors. These were a blind mate version where if you don't have perfect alignment between the two housings, they will mate with each other with more misalignment than a typical connector. Size range is up 4 to 30 positions. They all have UL recognition and many have CSA. This is a great example of a product family, right, where contacts are shared across multiple different housings. But a customer that might need a rectangular connector, he can use the same contacts that he's using in a circular connector. And that may be beneficial for some customers. They don't have to buy as many different contacts, inventory as many different contacts, and he may have a crimp tool that works, of course, with that same contact that he uses in circular and rectangular housings. It's mostly, everything on this page is signal. We have a few that are higher power, but everything shown on this page is signal. We have some versions that have the larger contact, which we'll get into higher power. Now we say signal, some people think of signal as 1 amp or less, but in our portfolio, signal means, maybe 1 up through 10 or 12 amps. We'd still call signal, just to differentiate from our power, which is, up to 40 amps. So it's really signal and low power up to maybe the 10 amp area.
There are several slides later on, where it shows the different configurations and how they can mate with the drawer style of versions, the square grid versions and the connectors, inline connectors, and that's about it basically. Now, again, the type of applications, it's pretty much similar to what we already talked about with the CPC. The picture is pretty much the same. So, and the type of applications vary, again, not only towards the application focused growth areas that we have identified within industrial, but you can think beyond and think outside the box on where these products can be utilized. You can also find some more application and reference material to some links that are down below here, the Metromate landing page, the catalog, and even the application spec. And I think that would be a nice closing part of this call, is basically a representation of how a CPC could actually be, assembled to a rectangular, or on the one side you can have a CPC connector and on the other side you can have a rectangular. So depending on the application itself, so you can do so many things, and this could be a very nice offering that covers both product lines within the CPC, both the rectangular and the CPC, so, or even the inline connector, and then you can have the CPC on the other side. So there are so many different type of configurations that this portfolio can offer that are, I think, plenty of them. It's time to end this training.